We're on Kufnan Gimel Amud Aleph. First line at the top. We're in the middle of the Agadata where the Gemara is discussing Psukim and Koheles, Benegeh, to what happens when a person gets older, a person passes away, and then weiter. Okay, so here the Gemara talks about this Inyan. Omer Rav Yehuda B'rei Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Mishmei de Rav, in the name of Rav, Me'aspeidoi Shalodam. From the hesped of a person, Nikar in Ben Olam Haba Umlav. You can see if he's a Ben Olam Haba or not. So Rashi here says, if he's a tzaddik, if he's a Adam kosher, so then people cry and people are really mourning his passing away, and they talk about his praise and they talk about who he was. So you can see from this if he's a Ben Olam Haba or not, Umlav or not. Fragt the Gemara, Eini, is this true? V'ha'amale Rav, Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas. Rav said to Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, Ochim behespeda. When it comes to my hesped, give a moving hesped that people should get warmed up and people should get nisayred on the hesped. So what do you see from this? And Rav added to that, the Hasam Ke'imna, because I'm going to be there. I'm listening to everything you're saying. So you say a moving hesped. So you see from this, a person like Rav, which is obviously a great tzaddik, not necessarily will people get moved from the hesped. So you can't say that based on what they say by the hesped, you know if he's a Ben Olam Haba. Rav had to specifically tell him, Ochim be'espeda. Okay, so it could be people would not get otherwise, even though he was definitely a Ben Olam Haba. Answers the Gemara, loy kashya. No, it's not a question. So really, the reason Rav, the way Rashi explains this Gemara is, the reason Rav had to tell, who was it? Who was he speaking to? Rav Shmuel Bar Shilas, to give a hesped that people will get moved by this hesped, is because even a great tzaddik, not necessarily will people get moved when he passes away. Lamashal, in the case of Rav, he passed away at an old age. When a person passes away at a very old age, so the mourning and the sadness of people is not as strong as it is when a person passes away at a young age. So therefore, not necessarily will people be mourning to such an extent when Rav passes away at an old age. However, here's the point. If a person is a tzaddik, and there's a moving hesped that's given, like what Rav told of Shmuel Bar Shilas to do, so then people will get very moved because he's a great tzaddik and people are listening to what's being said and people hear this and it's true, so people get moved by this. Then you have a person that he passes away and they give a very moving hesped, but nobody gets moved by it because it's not real. So therefore, what the Gemara is saying is, not necessarily by every hesped, by every person that he passes away, are people going to get moved. But when there's a hesped that's being given with ochim, that people are hearing a very moving hesped, if he's a tzaddik, it'll be nicker that he's a tzaddik because people will get moved by the hesped, and that's how it's nicker that he's a Ben Olam Haba. Amalei Abaye le Rabbe. Abaye said to Rabbe, Kogoymar, like you, the master, Rabbe, the son of Kulu Pumbedisa, all the people of the city where you were a Rav in Pumbedisa, they all didn't have a good relationship with Rabbe. They all hate you. Man Ochim Hespeda, who's going to give a moving hesped? Rashi explains that he was the Rav of the city of Pumbedisa, and in Pumbedisa there were people that were Ramoin. They didn't exactly have a very appropriate behavior, and Rabbe would give them Musar. So they didn't exactly like Rabbe as a Rav. So who's going to give a good hesped to you? Amalei, so Rabbe responded, Mistaya adve Rabbe bar Rav Chanan. It'd be enough if the hesped would come from you, Abaye, and Rabbe bar Rav Chanan. Rabbe bar Rav Chanan. By Menei Rabbe Lazar Merav, Rabbe Lazar asks Rav the question, Eizehu ben Olam Haba. Who is a Ben Olam Haba? Amalei, he answered him, you see in the pasuk, V'aznecha tishmana dova machrecha. And your ears will hear what's being said after you. After you, he's darshaning, after you pass away. Leimoyer as follows. Zeh derech l'chubai. Look, follow this person. This is the way you should go in it. Kitaminu v'chisasmilu, whether on the right, whether on the left. Here's a role model that you could follow. So when you hear that being said about you after you pass away, you know you're a Ben Olam Haba. Rab Chanina says, you could even know in your lifetime. Kol shadas Rabbiseinu noichei menu. If your teachers, if your rebbes are happy with you, so then you know that you're a Ben Olam Haba. So as Rashi over here explains, that noichei menu, the das Rabbiseinu, that's not Rashi, I'm sorry, it's the Marsha. He says if a person's father or his friends are showing him that they're happy with him, then that necessarily is a sign that you're doing what you're supposed to. Because they're happy with you, it's your father, it's your friend. But if your teachers are happy with you, so then you know you're ben Eilam Haba. Now the Gemara comes back to the psukim. This is the conclusion of the drashas on the psukim in Koheles that we were bringing up before, beneged to a person in his old age, and then when a person passes away. V'savavu bashuk hasayftim. The Gemara, the pasuk there says that the eulogizers will go around in the marketplace. What does this mean? B'nei Gelila Amri, in Gelila they would say, Asay Dvarim, you should do things in your lifetime, Lifnei Mitascha. So there should be a eulogy that could be said in front of your Oren after you pass away. B'nei Yehuda Amri, in Yehuda they would say, Asay Dvarim La'achar Mitascha. You should do things in your lifetime so that after, behind your mitzvah, behind your aron, they should be able to give a eulogy for you. And the Gemara explains it's not a machlekes. V'loi pligi, there's no machlekes here. Mar ki asrei umar ki asrei. In each place, according to the custom that they had, how they would say the hesped, if they would say it in front of the mitzvah or behind the mitzvah. But the point over here is that a person should do teshuvah in his lifetime and do ma'asim tevim, so that when it comes to his hesped, that they should v'savav b'shuk hasayftim, they should say a hesped on this person.
Minig by us is not to...
Right, in Chabad, the minig is not to say hesped at all, because the person is being judged based on the things that are being said by the hesped. And ayayis, people say things that are guzma by the hesped, so the minig is not to say a hesped. Tanan Hasam, we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer Aimer, Shuv Yoim Echad Lefnei Misascha. Famous Gemara. Person should do teshuvah a day before he passes away. Does the person know which day he passes away? That he could do teshuvah one day before? So he responded to them, it's exactly the point. So most definitely today, every day in his life, you should do teshuvah. Shema yamas l'macha. If perhaps he might pass away tomorrow, v'nimtza kol yom b'teshuvah. So the entire lifetime of a person, he should do teshuvah. V'af shleima b'chachmasai, Shlomo Melech says as well, b'choleis you begadecha levanim. You should always have white clothing. V'shemen al roishcha al yechsar. And the oil on your head should never be lacking. A person constantly, in his entire life, should be thinking that this could be the last day of his life and therefore should do teshuvah. The Rebbe once brought in the Sikha that this Gemara is brought in Sfarim. I don't remember now exactly which Sefer, maybe it's in Sefer Chassidim, that the same exact thing, but the Gemara said, in the other Sfarim it says that the person should always think that Mashiach might come today. And when Mashiach is going to come, I want to come ready, prepared to greet Mashiach. So it's the same idea, but the Rebbe said, it's an asacha geschmack reifen. Instead of thinking that I might pass away any moment, and therefore I should do teshuvah, a person should always think to himself, I have to be ready to greet Mashiach. Amar Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai, Mashal lemelech shezimenes avodav l'suda. A king that invited his servants to a suda, but v'lekovelem zman. He didn't let them know the time, exactly when the party is taking place, an invitation without the time. So what happened? The wise servants, kishtuas atzman, so they immediately beautified themselves, they prepared themselves. V'yashva pesach beis hamelech, they came and they were there waiting at the opening at the door by the king. Amru, and they said to themselves, Klum chasel beis hamelech, does the king lack anything? In any moment's notice, the king could decide the party is beginning, so we better be ready. Tipshim Shaban, the fools amongst the servants, Holchul Malachtam, they went to their work. Amru, they said, Klum yesh suda b'lei teirach. Could the king throw the party without any preparations? So with this time, the king will have to prepare, and we'll find out, and we'll have time to come be ready. Suddenly the king summoned his servants to come join him in his party. The wise ones, were entered, ready, prepared beautifully. The fools, and they had to run from where they were in their work, and they came all dirty. The king was very happy with the way the pikhim, the wise servants, greeted him. The koas lekras tipshim, and he was angry with the tipshim, with the fools, that they came all dirty. Omar, he said, halalu shekishtra satzmam l'suda, the wise servants that beautified themselves to be ready for the party, yeshvu v'yoichlu v'yishtu, they should come and sit and eat and drink. Halalu shaloi kishtra atzmam l'suda, but the fools that did not prepare themselves for this party, for this festive meal, yamdu v'yiru, They will stand there on the side and they will just have to observe the party. They can't join. The son-in-law of Rab Meir said in the name of his father-in-law, Rab Meir, if they're standing there on the side, so they can't join, but it's not embarrassing for them. They could stand there, and it looks like they're servants in the party. Ella, what happens actually is even more than this. Eilu ve'eilu yoshvin. Everybody comes and sits around the same table. Halalu oichlin. The pikchin can come and are allowed to eat, but for halalu re'evin. And the ones that did not prepare properly are left hungry. They're not served. Halalu shaisin v'halalu tzmeim. The pikchin are drinking, and the others are thirsty. Shenemar, as we see this in the pasuk, it says, "L'chein koyamar Hashem hine avdi yoichlu." My servants are going to eat, and the atem and the other ones and you tiravu will be hungry. Hine avdi yishtu. My servants will drink v'atem titzmo, and you're going to be thirsty. Hine avdi yareinu. My servant will sing mitoiv lev, from a good heart, v'atem titzakum mik'ev lev, and you will scream from heart pains, from not being allowed to join the Suda. So this is the pshat that the Gemara says, what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to explain this idea of b'chol eis yir b'gedecha levanim v'shem ha'reish techsa, that a person should constantly be ready at any moment's notice to be ready to come to join the big Suda that the Eibusher prepares for us. Davar acher, another pshat in this pasuk of b'chol eis yir b'gedecha levanim, elu tzitzis. This refers to wearing tzitzis all the time. As Rashi says, the beged of the tzitzis is white. So it refers to wearing the white beged of the tzitzis. The oil on your head, you shouldn't be lacking any oil. This refers to tefillin, which you wear on the head. And Rashi says also that the tefillin, if shemen al yechsar, the word shem, toiv shemen mishem toiv, the word shemen is related to shem toiv, which is also related to the tefillin. V'ro chalami aretz ki shem Hashem nikra lecha, that the name of the Eibusher is upon you. Hadran alach shayo. Okay, if we begin the very last Perek of Masechta Shabbos.
We learned before, but we get to.
One second. If you don't mind, we'll end again, and then I'll answer you soon. I just want to finish the Inyan, then I'll answer Mitzvah Okay. Zok the Mishnah. Mi shehechshich b'derech. A person is traveling on his way, Erev Shabbos, and it's getting late, it's getting dark, and he's not going to make it on time into the city or into his Rishus HaYachid, and he has things in his pocket. Noisin kisei lenachri, you can give his wallet to a guy, and the guy will deliver it for you. If there's no guy there, so then you can place it on your donkey, and the donkey will carry it for you. And then you come to an outer courtyard, right when you come to the city, and then there's a courtyard where it's already a place where you can take it down to the Rishus HaYachid. You can take from the donkey or from the guy the kelim that are not muktzeh. And the other things that are muktzeh, what do? You untie the ropes of the donkey, and the sacks of those things that are muktzeh fall on their own, and they can remain there in a safe place. So what did we see here in the Mishnah? You have two options. Either you give it to a guy, and if you can't give it to a guy, so then you place it on a chamayr that it should be brought for you. So the Gemara will explain all these in Yanim. Sagt the Gemara, my time is why did the Rabbanan allow for a person to give his wallet to a guy to bring for him? This is awesome of the Rabbanan. This is the Isser of Amira Lenachri. And as Rashi here brings, that you're making the guy a shliach to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. That's one of the reasons for the whole Isser of Amira Lenachri. So why in this case, it's Chachamim Malaya to tell the guy to do this for you? Even if you tell him before Shabbos, we're talking here about Erev Shabbos, you tell the guy to do this for you, how are you allowed to do that? And says the Gemara, Kimlu l'Rabbanan. The Rabbanan know the nature of a person. The Eina the Maimed Atzmei Mamayna. A person will not be able to withstand this challenge when he has a wallet with money in it to just leave it there. Iloi Shadis Lei, if you're not going to allow him to give it to the guy, Asil Asuyah Dal Damas B'Rishus Harabim. He's going to come to bring this Dal Damas in the Rishus Harabim and carry it on Shabbos. So therefore, they allowed you to have the guy bring it for you. Now, the Rishonim here discuss this and say that this is different than what we learned before, b'negei to a case where you have a fire that breaks out on Shabbos. There, you're not allowed to tell a guy, kabe, extinguish the fire. Over here, you're allowed to tell the guy to bring for you the thing. The Rishonim discussed this here, and there's some various terutzim that I given for this. The Ramban here says that the difference is that over here, it's talking about Erev Shabbos. Before, it's talking about when the fire broke out on Shabbos itself. On Erev Shabbos, there were more mekel. Another teretz that Rashba says is that over here, we're talking about there's a wallet, and it's not mamish such a situation where a person loses his mind completely. With a fire, the nature of a person is that when there's a fire burning, a person gets totally lost, and if you allow him to tell a guy to put out the fire, he himself might go and put out the fire. But stam, a case with a wallet on Erev Shabbos, he's more b'yishuv adas, so it's not so extreme. Omar Rave says, Rave dafke kisei. But this is only talking about a wallet. You're allowed to tell a guy to bring your wallet. Something that it's a wallet or something that you have. But stam, if it's a lost item, you find a mitzvah, you're not allowed to tell the guy to bring a mitzvah for you. Sagt the Gemara, pshita, it's obvious. Kisei tnan. It says in the Mishnah, kisei. This is something that you worked for. So therefore, this is something that you have, Rashi here says, you were matriach for this, you worked hard for this, so this is something that Chachamim know that a person will not just leave there. So they allow this heter. But stand for a mitzvah, why should they allow this? And for the Gemara, Mao, the time who are then a fill mitzvah, I would think that when the Mishnah said kisai, it's lav dafka. It includes even another mitzvah that you found that you can give to a guy. And when it says kisai, the Mishnah is just using what's more usual. Usually it's a case where a person has his own kisai. Kamash malan, so therefore the chiddush over here is that you can, he's saying that only your wallet and not a mitzvah. But the Gemara adds, this is only in a case where there's a mitzvah that you found and you didn't pick it up yet, and you didn't assume ownership over it yet. You find a mitzvah, and now you want to come and give it to a guy to carry for you. Once you found this mitzvah, you picked it up, it's yours now. Kikise dami. It's like yours. Then it becomes like yours and has the same halacha like any other kiss that you're allowed to give a guy to carry for you. Others say that this statement over here of Rave wasn't a statement, it was actually an Ibaya. Rave asked the question, Mitzia bali yadei mahu, a Mitzia that came to your hands, what's going to be the din? Kiv and Dasi, so this last point that we just said over here, Rava had an Ibaya about this. Should I say, Kiv and Dasi liyadei, since now it came into your hands and you now own it, just like anything else you own, kikisi dami. So now it's like any kiss, like any other wallet that you're allowed to give to the guy. Or you say, no, since you didn't work for it, it's not money you earned through your own hard work, it's not like money that you earned and that the person will not be able to control himself, and the Chachamim made a heter. For this, they didn't make the heter. Teiku, and this remains unanswered. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was, Eini Meinachri. If there's no guy that you can give you money to, what do you do then? You put it on the Chamar to carry for you. Zok the Gemara, time Eini Meinachri. So what do you see here from the Gemara? So you're only allowed to use the heter that the donkey should carry it for you if you don't have a guy. Hayeshim Meinachri. But if there is a guy there, L'nachri avle, so then you should give it to the guy. It's better to give it to a guy to carry for you than to give it to the donkey to carry for you. My time. What's the reason? Sagt the Gemara, Chamoir at the mitzvah al shvisasai. By a donkey, a person is commanded that the donkey should not do work for you. As we'll see soon in the Gemara, if it's a donkey that you own, so then there's an isser of shvisas behemte, that a person can't do malacha with his own behemoth that he owns. Or even if it's something that you don't own, it's a behemoth you don't own, there's a halacha of machamer, which we'll learn soon in the Gemara. So over here, the chamayr at the mitzvah al shvisasei. Nachri at the mitzvah al shvisasei. Minat teire, there's no isser of a guy doing malacha for you. Right, it's only isser midrabanan. So it's much easier to be mater, a guy to do the malacha for you, than the chamayr doing the malacha for you. In fact, as we'll see soon in the Gemara, it's b'chalal not so pashut how you could have the chamayr carry it for you. If it's a isser minat teire, that the chamayr can't do the malacha for you, so then what's the heter? The chachamim are not being mater isser minat teire, they're only being mater and isser midrabanan. But whatever the hezbollah is, as we'll see soon, it's much easier to be matter that a guy should carry it for you than a chamer should carry it for you. Sagt the Gemara weiter. How about if you have a case, chamer v'cheres sheite v'katan. You don't have a guy, but you have an option to either give it to a chamer to carry for you or a cheres sheite v'katan. A chamer manachle. It's better to put it on a chamer to carry for you and not on the cheres sheite v'katan. L'cheresh sheite a chamor monachlai, place it on the chamor, l'cheresh sheite v'katan lo yavle. And don't give it to a cheresh sheite v'katan to carry for you. My time, what's the reason? Hani Adam, over here, cheresh sheite v'katan are people, they're human beings, and Hai lav Adam, the chamor is not a person. So if you're going to give it to a cheresh sheite v'katan, it's easier to confuse that it's allowed to give to any other person to carry for you. Cheresh v'sheite, how about if you have a choice to give what you're carrying to either a cheresh or to a sheite? L'sheite, so you should give it to a sheite. It's better to give it to a sheite than to give it to a cheresh. And the reason is, as Rashi says, a sheite has no das b'chlal. A cheresh, even though usually we say that cheresh, sheite, v'katan are in the same category, but he's not exactly on the same level as a sheite. A cheresh is a person that has das. Elamai, he has no communicating skills of this. He can't hear, he can't speak. So therefore Rashi says, daito klishta. He has a very schwache das. But it's not that he doesn't have das at all. So therefore it's better to give it to a sheite that has no das at all. Sheite v'katan, if you have an option to give it to either a sheite and a katan, you give it to a sheite, which has no das at all, in contrast to the sheite.
Yeah, but Lav Dafka is going to keep it.
Lav Dafka, he is... You might not get it, huh? Okay. The shaila the Gemara now asks is, in the case of a cheresh v'katan, you have a choice to give it either to a cheresh or to give it to the katan. Who do you give it to? The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, according to Rabbi Eliezer, there's no question, because he says, Rabbi Yitzchak mishum Rabbi Eliezer, trumas cheresh. If you have truma that was separated from a cheresh, loy teitze l'chulin. This is a truma that cannot go out to chulin, mipnei shehi safik. Because it's a suffix whether this cheresh has enough das that he has the clarity to know what he did, what he made now truma. So we see that Rabbi Eliezer holds that the das of a cheresh is a suffix. It's not that he has no das at all. On the other hand, a katan is an individual that has no das at all. So therefore, if you have a choice to give it to a cheresh or a katan, you should definitely give it to a katan. According to who is there a question here? I'll leave it to Rabbanan. The question is according to the Rabbanan. The Tanan, because the Mishnah says, again regarding Trumah, the Rabbanan hold, Chamisha lo yitraimu. There are 5 individuals that cannot give Trumah, should not give Trumah. V'im tarmu, and if they did give Trumah, ain't Trumasan. Truma. That truma is not truma. Does not take effect at all. Eilu hein, cheresh, sheite, v'katan. So he puts a cheresh, sheite, v'katan all in the same category. That a cheresh is not a suffix. It's not truma at all. V'atayrim eshein shaloi. You give truma of somebody's produce that's not yours, and that's without his permission. Or v'nochri shetaram es shal Yisrael afilu b'reshusay. Or a guy that's taking truma from a yid's produce, even with his permission, the guy taking the truma does not take effect. Ain't truma, say truma. So over here, according to the Rabbanan's opinion, a cheresh is in the same status as a katan as far as the das is concerned. So the question now is, l'cheresh yavle, should you rather give something to carry for a cheresh? Why? The katan osil chlal das. Katan is an individual that one day will grow up and have das. So you don't want to give it to the katan and then he'll grow up with das. Or maybe you should give it dafka to a katan. The cheresh osil achlufi begadol pikeach. Giving it to an adult, which is a cheresh, you could confuse this with a gadol that has das, which is a pikech. So what should you do? So the Gemara says, Ikkedamri l'cheresh yavle. There are those that say that in such a case you give it to a cheresh, and Ikkedamri l'katan yavle. Others say that in such a case you give it to a katan. How about ein sham loy nachri, loy chamar, loy cheresh, v'loy sheite, v'loy katan? You have none of these options. There's nobody there, you're alone, you're stuck alone, and you're out of Shabbos, and you have nobody to give it to. What do you do then? What happens? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, so Rabbi Yitzchak said, Oida cheres haisa, there is another eitzah, but v'leiratzu chacham legalaisa. The chacham did not want to reveal in the Mishnah befedish what this eitzah is. Oida cheres haisa, what is the other eitzah? Lichai paches medalad amas. You can walk with it and stop in less than 4 amas, so you're never carrying 4 amas. So it's awesome with the Rabbanan. Usually Chachamim don't allow a person to do this, but in such a case where Chachamim know that a person will not be oimid in this Nisayan, and he's going to come to carry it, they allowed him to carry it less than Dalad Amas. Why did Chachamim not want to reveal this eitzah? It's a pashut eitzah. Mishum kvoid elikim hasta dava v'kvoid chachamim v'kvoid melachim chakir. There's certain things that for the honor of the Eibishter, it's better that it's left hidden, and certain things by a king, you have to search it on your own, and it shouldn't be said clearly.
This is
Second, v'kvoid malachim chakar davar. V'hacha my kvoid elikim. What's the covet? What covet? My kvoid elikim. What's the covet by keeping this a secret? Dilma asi lasuya dal damas b'rishus. It's possible this kind of a heter is a risky heter. It's the kind of heter, if you allow a person to do this, he might come himself to carry a dal damas b'rishus because he's walking and he has to stop less than dal damas. It's much more likely that a person might actually come and carry.
It's to stop. We stop every step. You stop.
No. When a person is walking, that's not considered to be a hanocha. Right? We learned in the first Perek, a hanocha is when a person is stopping to walk. If you continue, if you remember before we learned, I think it was Ben Azai. Ben Azai held mehalach ka'omed dami, but we don't pass like Ben Azai. We hold that if a person has to stop, he has to stand with 2 feet in one place and stop. So yeah, we do paskin like this Gemara over here that you could do it pachas midal damas, but it's only b'diavad obviously. Chatchila, it's not. You shouldn't be done. You should find another way where you could put it away. If a person can hide his wallet in a place where it's going to be safe, that he could come back after Shabbos, or he can give it to a guy to keep for him or to deliver for him. That's a much better eitzah. Tanya, regarding this eitzah of bringing it less than dal damas, we learned in the Braisa, on that day. Rashi says, which day are we speaking about? This goes back to something we learned in the first Perek. If you remember, there was a day where they made all kinds of takonis, Yud Ches Dava. They were geyser one day when they all were in an aliyah, the Tamid Beis Shammai, Tamid Beis Hillel. And one of the things that they mentioned over there was this takana, the Chachamim allowed the person to bring it less than dal damas. On that day, Gachu Sa'ah. So Rabbi Eliezer says, Gachu Sa'ah. What does Gachu Sa'ah mean? That it overflowed, the produce, the measurement overflowed. In other words, Rabbi Eliezer was saying that this was a good idea, this was great. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, the produce was leveled out, meaning that it's a problem. You allow this heter, it's going to bring a person to Chas v'Shalom actually be Mechal Shabbos. The Gemara gives an analogy for this. Tanya, Mashal, the Rabbi Eliezer Lamad, David Daimid, the point that Rabbi Eliezer just said, that this heter is a good idea. What this is similar to is Lukupa Maleya Kishuan Vidiluin. You have a basket that's full of vegetables, big vegetables like cucumbers or melons, whatever it is. Adam Naisen Lateicha Chardel. You still have space to put into it smaller things. You can put inside mustard seeds. V'imach zekes, and the space. The same thing over here. There's the Yisurim in Atayra. This heter, to allow a person to carry less than Daled Amis, is good. It's beneficial. It could be held in the basket, so to speak. It's going to allow a person to bring it, and you won't be Mechal Shabbos. Masha Rabbi Yeshua Lamad David Daimir, Rabbi Yeshua that says that no, that this is a problem, that it's memachikes asah, it's going to chip away from the isam and atayre. La reva malei dvash. If you have a basket that's full of honey, nice and and then you want to throw into this basket a pomegranate or even nuts, v'makia, and the honey is going to overflow and it's going to leave the basket. Sometimes you make a siog, you make a takana, you make a heter in this case actually, and this heter itself might bring that you could be over isam and atayre. Oh mamar. So not going back to the case that we said before, that you can place it on a chamer. So we said in any mainachri, if you don't have a guy to give it to, manicha la chamer. You place it on a donkey, and the donkey brings it to you. Frekte gemara v'haloi mechamer. But the person is doing a lav or isra of mechamer. V'rachmana ama leisasa kol malacha. There's a pasuk that says, "Leisasakam malacha." You're not allowed to do this. What's this isser of mechamer? The isser of mechamer is learned out from this pasuk where it says, the full pasuk is "Leisasakam malacha ato vincha vitecha avdocha v'amascha v'hemtecha v'gercha shebesharecha." So Chazal learn out from this pasuk when it says behemtecha and it says "Leisasa lacha" together with behemtecha. What this means is, if you are leading an animal to do something for you, you're leading it, that's called mechamer. Meaning, even in a case where this is not your animal b'chlal, there's two different isurim. There's one isur of shvisas behemtoi, that your animals in your field are not allowed to do any work, the animals you own. Over here we're not talking about the animals you own. We're talking about stama chamer. But even stama chamer, even if a guy owns this chamer, but nevertheless you're not allowed to lead it, to even not even leading it with a reins, even leading it bedibur, that you're placing something on it and it's following you to go and deliver something for you. That's the isser of mechamer. So how are you allowed to do this? What's the heter? It's isser minat teira. Amar Avada bar Ave, you're right, it's like a problem. What the Mishnah means is, Manichoi aleh keshehi maleches. While the donkey is already walking, so then you could place it on the donkey. So Rashi explains, just like benegeh to a person, in such a case, if a person is already in motion and you place something on him, so then it's not considered to be an akira, because the akira is only when something is being uprooted from a place where is stable in one place. But while the chamayr is in motion, so then you place it on the chamayr and the chamayr brings it for you, there's no akira here. So in such a case, it's not a malacha. So Chachamim allowed a heter to do this in a case where you're doing so ism d'Rabbanan. They were matter the ism d'Rabbanan, but not if it would have been a malacha in a way that it's ism and atayra. Fragt the Gemara, but you're walking with a donkey at distance and it's delivering for you, so then it's not possible that the donkey shouldn't stop to relieve itself, and then it stops. And then it continues going, and you're leading then the donkey. So then in such a case, and then there's a real malacha where the donkey is doing a nakira and a hanacha, and you're leading it. And for the Gemara, the only eitzah here would be, what the Mishnah means is, while it's walking, you placed it on the donkey. So then there was no akira. And then kishima medis, when you see that it's going to stop walking, you have to take it off from the donkey. Fragt the Gemara, if that's how you're doing it, if you're doing it in a oifen that the donkey is not even doing an akira and a hanacha, you're sort of helping the donkey that it shouldn't be a full malacha that the donkey does because you pick it up. So why can't you have this eitzah to do it together with another person? The point of here is, if you do a malacha together with another person, two people are doing a malacha together, it's shnaim shasu. What's the halacha of shnaim shasu? Shnaim shasu is pater avalasa. It's only a gzeirim d'Rabbanan. So wouldn't Chachamim be matter to do in this way? Rav Papa says no, they weren't. Anything that if you do it, the whole malacha alone, the whole akira and the hanacha alone, you chayiv chatas, b'chaveiroi pater avalasar. If you're doing it together with your friend, then it's going to be pater avalasar. Shnaim shasu, and then that gezeira still applies in this case. Kol shechaveiroi pater avalasar. If what you're doing together with your friend, what you would do together with your friend is shnaim shasu, would be pater avalasar, b'chamairoi, when you're doing a malacha together with chamayr, it's mutar lachatchila. In such a case, it's mutar lachatchila. The Torah didn't allow you to have the chamayr do the malacha alone, but if you're doing it together with the chamayr, the chacham will matter this, and it's mutar lachatchila. Amar Avada bar Ave says, a person is wearing a package, he's holding a package on his back, and it comes before Shabbos, and he's walking. So what do? You should run with your package until you arrive to your house. So you were walking already from before Shabbos. So when Shabbos began, you never did an akira because you were already in motion. So like this, you should continue walking until you arrive to your house on Shabbos. Now the Gemara says, Dafkirotz, you must run. Aval kali kali loy. But to walk in slow steps, you shouldn't. Why not? My timer. Kivin the lesle akeda, because if he's not doing something to remind himself that it's Shabbos and he's not allowed to stop, while he's walking, he might stop and then begin walking again, and then he's going to make an akira v'anocha. Saif, fragt the Gemara, okay, he's running all the way and he's not doing a new akira after Shabbos began, but at the end, kimot lebeise, when he arrives to his house, it's impossible that he shouldn't have to stop right outside his house and then to enter inside. So when he stops over there, he stops outside and then he enters into the house and he just made an akira na'anocha. And for the Gemara, you're right. So what he has to do is the zarek le'klachayad. He has to throw it kalachayad from the Rishus Harabim into the Rishus HaYachid. While he's still standing outside and he's in motion and he comes to his house, he has to throw it kalachayad into the Rishus HaYachid, and then in such a way he's not doing any malachim and atayra, and then it's allowed.
Why does it have to be done kalachayad?
Shaloi kederech zrike. If it's not done kalachayad.
Who's done kalachayad that it's not Rishus?
No, but he didn't make a hanacha. Good question. That's another shinui that has to be done. Either. Good question. The next Gemara.